Hello, this is Dan McCarty. We're here once again on behalf of Marketing Man Site's YouTube channel. Today we have another professional selling presentation. Today we're going to talk more about the presentation itself. We're going to talk about overcoming objectives. Overcoming objectives. I want to start with kind of a cute little saying that I saw that kind of stuck with me that says, buyers object because salesmen are dumb. They think salesmen are dumb. And dumb, according to this article, was doesn't understand my business. So when people object, what they're really saying is, you don't understand my business. The first step in dealing with objection is having the right attitude. And it's not this guy's attitude, the one I have up on the screen. Objections aren't a bad thing. They're a good thing. Objections means people are engaged. It means people are kind of picturing themselves doing what you're thinking of proposing, but they have some concerns, so they're challenging you a little bit. The worst kind of presentation to get is where someone just sits there quietly, and when you're done, they say, okay, I'll get back to you and let you know. Well, how did you feel about it? I'll let you know. That's the worst kind of presentation because they're not giving you any chance to know where their head's at and to maybe give some additional facts that might sway them. On the other hand, if someone is objecting, then they're engaged, they're thinking about your product, they're raising a concern, and more important, they're giving you an opportunity to respond to their concern and make it go away. So objections aren't bad things, they're good things. They mean you're on the road to a sale. So, first you got to have the right attitude. You're going to answer sincerely. You're going to refrain from arguing or contradicting. You're going to welcome objectives because, like I just said, objectives represent selling opportunities. Why do buyers object? Well, to the initial appointment, maybe they're not familiar with your product or the concept that you're trying to sell them. Presentation, they're just, it's a show of interest, really. An objection is, well, gee, I'm kind of picturing myself doing this, and here's my concern. I don't think it'll work because of this. So it's a show of interest during a presentation. When you're trying to obtain commitment, it simply means they're not sold yet. Your job's not done. They still have some issues they would like more information or more point of view on. And after the sale, they're probably looking for reassurance that they made the right call. The good news, objections can be predicted. There's only a few basic kind of projections that people offer, and you can anticipate those and figure out answers you're going to have for each type of objection so you won't be floundering when you get in the meeting. There tend to be 5 different types of objections. There's objections related to needs. Okay, I don't need this product or service, or I've never done it that way before. Objections related to the product, don't like the product or the features, don't understand, they need more information. Objections related to the source. I don't like your company, or I'm not crazy about you. Objections related to price. I don't have any money, or I don't think the value exceeds the cost. And objections related to time, which is, I'm not interested today, or I just need more time to think about it. The key to overcoming any objection, what they're doing in their mind is a cost-benefit analysis. It's a hassle to change things, regardless of the offsets. So you have to take the cost plus the hassle factor and put it on one scale. On the other hand, you've got to say, okay, what are all the benefits that you can have that outweigh them? So when you're getting objections, that benefit side of the scale is not heavy enough yet in the buyer's mind. Now, responding to objectives, what do the best salespeople do? First of all, they anticipate them, and they prepare helpful responses. They address known problems before the prospect does. In other words, they try to forestall as many objections as they can in their presentation. They relax. They don't interrupt the buyer. They want to listen. They make sure the objection's serious. It's not just an excuse, but they always tell the truth. Sometimes objections are valid, and we'll tell you how to deal with a valid objection. So how do you respond? Well, understand, first of all, that there's no one-size-fits-all for answering objections. Preparation the key, and know when to stop. Know when the salesman is just not in a frame of mind to listen to a positive selling presentation. However, here are some things that you can do. Start with some probing questions. You can be verbal or nonverbal, so make sure you understand the objection. Not only the objection, but maybe what's behind the objection. I'm just not crazy about that. Can you be a little more clear? What exactly is it that you're not crazy about? Well, it's too big, or now you're talking. Okay, now you've defined the objection more clearly, and you can begin to respond to it. So when you don't start with really understanding the objection with a probing question, you might mess up. You won't fully understand the objection, so you can respond to it. Now, there's two paths you can take when dealing with objections. The first is, if they make an objection that's just not true, it's not fair, you can either use the direct or the indirect denials. And we'll talk about how to do those. On the other hand, if the objection is valid, if the concern is really a justified one, then there are some tools you can use to deal with those. They're called compensation, referral, revisit, acknowledge, and postpone, and we'll talk about those. So let's say the buyer makes a statement that's just not factually true. First, you can make a direct denial. You just make a relatively strong statement that indicates that perhaps the prospect is in error, that the prospect is in error. And that's appropriate when the objection is just blatantly inaccurate. They just have their facts wrong, and you can prove it to them. Don't use this if it's just an opinion. You can't argue someone out of their first opinion. Indirect denial is where the salesman denies the objection, but then he tries to soften the response. You recognize the position of the customer. Okay, I understand why you would feel that way. And other people, when they first are presented with this item, have had similar concerns. But let me share some facts with you, and then you introduce the substantial evidence. Usually the indirect denial is the best way to go. It doesn't embarrass the buyer. It doesn't lead to an argument or confrontation. It's just more people-friendly. So that's what you do if the concern is not true or just simply wrong. What do you do if they have a valid objection? I mean, every product has pros and cons. What you're trying to sell is, okay, I've got more pros than cons. So what if they have a valid objection? What can you do? Well, one way is the compensation method. You say, okay, your product's less than perfect. Well, you acknowledge that and then show compensating advantages. Show them the scale again that shows that, there are a lot more good things than bad things, and when you put them on a scale, one far outweighs the other. The referral method. Other people have feel that. I understand how you feel. Other people have felt that way, but they have found that this is true instead. That's the feel, felt, found method. I understand why you feel that way. Others have felt that way. What they have found is they were wrong, and tell them why. Revisit method. The salesman can turn the objection into a reason for buying. Okay, well, let's take another look at that. Let's see if we can address your concern, through this proposal or that proposal, or a feature or a warranty or some kind of tweak to the proposal that will somehow we can revisit things and make you feel more comfortable. So, I'm worried that I'm going to have a lot of repair costs. Well, what if we included a maintenance program with that at just a small additional fee? Would that make you feel more comfortable? So you can revisit your proposition. Another method, the acknowledge method. That's where the buyer voices opinions or concerns just to vent some frustration. Okay? The salesman listens, acknowledges, pauses, and then moves off to another topic. So if you're just saying, well, I just hate having to make this change at this important time. I have so many things to do. All right, that's not a serious objection. That's just him venting some frustration. So you acknowledge that, say, I know it's probably not the best time to be doing this kind of thing, but when you look at the benefits relative to not doing it, it's just something to do, but we're going to be there to help you. So that's more of an approach to take. That's called the acknowledge method. The postpone method, so the buyer raises objections and the salesman knows he's got some information later in the presentation that's going to address that. Rather than get into it too early, just say, if you could just hold that objection for a minute. I have a chart on that exact subject, and I'm going to get to it in just a minute. So if you could just hold your objection just for a second till we get to that, and then I'll make sure it's addressed completely. So you should ask permission to answer the question at a later time, especially when it's a price objection early in the presentation. You don't want to deal to price till you've gone through the entire presentation, because it's not about price, it's about value. And you have to make sure you've made it clear what all the values are before you get to the price discussion. Okay, let's talk about that price objection. It's the most frequently mentioned obstacle. Do not lower the price as a first response. That makes you look weak, and it'll even raise concerns in the buyer's mind that maybe it was a frivolous number you tossed out to begin with. So don't start by lowering the price. What you want to do is establish value. What you want to say is, understand we're talking about more than you're paying for your current product. However, as I showed in my cost-benefit analysis, and maybe you pull that back out, the price differential is more than offset by incremental savings. It actually gives you a 50% return on your additional investment. So the net is a positive to you. You got to look at this as a value, not strictly as a price thing. You got to see what you're buying. So that's what almost all sales presentations, whether you're encountering objectives or making your case, that's what it boils down to. You're going to have the cost of doing something, money and hassle. You're going to have the benefits of doing something. It's your job to make sure that that balance is heavily weighted to making the decision to buy something from you. Now, what do you do if you've got just a real SOB, a real rough person to deal with? He's a jerk. She's a jerk, whoever. Just a tough buyer. Well, you need to maintain a positive attitude, even if they're hard to get along. Recognize you're not asking to marry this guy. You're not asking to be his best friend. You're going to be there for a short period of time. So try to suck it up and just deal with it. If it really is out of hand, it may be appropriate for you to point out how rude they are and just say, I just don't feel that's called for at this point in time. And the buyer's culture sometimes just dictates that they be a little tough and that they show that they've got teeth and they be a little more belligerent than maybe you'd like them to. So try to look at it as a product of their culture and just try to roll with it as much as you can. I know it's difficult, but again, you're not marrying the guy, you're selling them something. So this is Dan McCarty. Those are some tips for handling objections, and we'll be back with another video. I look forward to seeing you then.